Maybe to rephrase the position you have taken is to say that there is no question, and probably that is what we have made it clear out through. There is no question. The responsibility for structural design falls under the structural engineer. There is no question about that. There should not be question about that. Now, it is a question of in practice what we do, and so sometimes we don't give the space to the structural engineer, and sometimes these decisions may not be enforced. But that is now the position where the engineer, of course, they take their position and they put their foot on the ground and make sure their decisions are enforced. And if you have to countermand him, then you have to have a better solution, because then, like I alluded to, collaboratively engaging, even the contractors can do something called value engineering, so that they add value to the entire process, so that it is not really we're not saying no one is taking responsibility. We are saying there's someone who eventually takes responsibility. And we are saying, in practice, when that is not clear, then the engineer should carve out that space for themselves, because then they know their license is on the line if the structure does collapses and all that. But the fact is, there are times the engineer is never involved. They were just asked to submit their design for approval, and then they were never even engaged to supervise the project and all that. So in such situations, really, do you really still want to crucify this engineer? I have had instances where I see a project, the engineer's name is there. I ask the engineer, are you involved in this project? They tell me, no, I'm not involved. They even tell me, give me the address of that place so that I can report to NCA and all that. So that is now the reality I'm saying. Sometimes then we need to take who was responsible for that kind of a situation where the engineer was not involved in that process. But as to who is responsible for the structural integrity of the designs, there should be no question about that. The structural engineer is responsible. But we just have to find a way to cure the malfeasance in the industry, which are numerous. And they just want to push out the structural engineer. They think he is not necessary. He is replaced by another fundi who says we have done these things for many years, so we don't need this expensive engineer. He recommends D16. Then this fundi comes and saying we have done this thing with D10 or D12, and then because it is saving money, the owner takes it up. You understand? And that comes across so much in the private sector, which is not like individual projects. Institutional projects, because there are several eyes watching over the development, people are more careful to go that route. But in where it's one person doing their personal development or something, well, it's very easy to be swayed this way or another. And so that should be clear. So my way forward, and this is my recommendation, yes, engineer, is that all the engineers who are engaged in a different projects, they must be clear upfront whether their involvement is design and supervision. And if it is not, their involvement is not in the supervision, then there needs to be very clear agreement that then they are not responsible for execution, because then someone else can be responsible for the execution. But yes, will execution comply with the design and all that? So we really need to have the engineers involved all through the life of the project. No question about that. And the industry must start being deliberate about that. We must start holding other players responsible, I mean, in the industry, so that then the engineer does not just take blame when things go wrong, and his involvement, engagement has not been sustained, and this is the deliberate attack. So yeah, so that is really what I look up to. And let me tell you, as we have insisted that collapse of buildings is largely caused by human factors of action and inaction, we can cure it. We can cure it just by correcting those actions and inactions that we've been doing. And we stop losing life, and we stop losing a lot of investments. And I think we are, as engineers, we need to come out. We need to speak, and speak boldly. The society must know our space and our position. There is no person who will go to court, apart from Okiya Koito Mtata, to represent himself. They just go to get a lawyer to represent themselves. And when you get to the court, either whether it is a bench or the bar, it is a lawyer's business. Every other person is just an observer on the sidelines, so that they fight for my case and they make the decision for my case. In the infrastructure industry, in the construction industry, every Tom, Dick, and Harry is running the show. So we have to carve that position. Construction involves construction materials. The only expert in construction materials is an engineer. It's not an architect. It's not a QS. And we must to cover that praise and be bold and position ourselves, so that then there is no way the industry can run without the engineer. Just the way the legal profession and the justice sector cannot operate without lawyers. And I think there's been a historic collapse for us to fight for that space. I understand even the word activism is obnoxious to some of our professional colleagues. Activism is obnoxious, it is offensive. So that, but in a democracy, you have to be felt, you have to be seen, and you have to be present. And that's probably is what really we need to make sure we have. And I have engaged personally through building code, I've engaged NCA and all that, and I'll continue engaging just to make sure that we are deliberate, that there is no construction that can continue without active presence and the practical presence of an engineer through inspection testing plans, through supervision notes, and even the commission of the project should be accompanied by actual presence of the engineer all through. Yeah, so that is my view. And if we do that, one, we'll have someone who is responsible to held accountable, but two, we also create opportunities for engineers, because we're looking forward to so many engineers are lacking opportunities and the environment getting hostile for engineers. So yeah,